will start. I see that we're also live on Facebook. Welcome, everyone. Great to see all of you join here, and from different areas in our region as well. My name is Anat Sultan Dadon. I'm the Consul General of Israel to the Southeast U.S. and very happy to be joined today by Yael Golan, who is the director of the Southern region for the Israeli Ministry of Tourism. Yael has been in her position since August 2017, so almost 3 years now. And currently, we have been receiving many questions regarding where Israel is at in general with regards to COVID-19, but also with regards to tourism. So I will briefly introduce Yael, and she will then be able to give a brief presentation followed by a Q&A. So Yael is a graduate of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem with a degree in Business Administration and Latin American Studies. Previously, prior to her assuming her position here in Atlanta, she worked in the Marketing Administration Department of the Israeli Ministry of Tourism's office in Jerusalem, where she led Israel government tourist offices across North and South America, collaborating with the ministry's emissaries on administrative, human resources, marketing, and strategic topics. In her role here in Atlanta, Yael spearheads all Israeli tourism marketing activities and develops business relations with travel trade organizations, airlines, tour operators, and religious organizations throughout the southern region of the United States. I will let Yael briefly address where we are at during the pandemic and as we are looking for the day after the pandemic. And then Deputy Consul General Alex Gandler will be moderating the conversation with her, also with your questions. And so please do submit in the chat any suggestions that you may have once Yael is done presenting. Thank you, and to you, Yael.
Hey guys, thanks Anat, thanks Alex for having me today. And although I'm sure you're all, in anticipation of staring at my face for the next hour, I will, excuse you and will share my screen because I prepared a short presentation of only 2 hours. Kidding. So I'll just, super happy to be here today. And just to give you a brief 10 to 15 minutes background on how Israel addressed COVID-19 and how we're operating right now. So quick numbers, on March 10th, we were one of the first countries that required quarantine for all visitors, citizens and non-citizens. In March 18th, non-citizens were not permitted to enter, and at that point, we went from around 4.5 million tourists to a zero. And while we were waiting for everyone to join, I did take a look at the attendee list and I saw some familiar faces. So we have people here from hotel chains in Israel and operators, the Dan hotels, I think East Hotel is here, and also Kenes Tourism. So if you guys have any questions for other attendees here, please feel free. But Israel has been doing amazing in terms of tourism. In around 4 years, we almost doubled the numbers of tourists, and we were expecting around 4.5 million travelers to experience Israel in 2020. COVID hit, and we went from growth over growth to zero tourism. In March 19th, we started with shelter in place for all citizens. So unlike the US, where different states, again, New York, California, Illinois, are experiencing what I call a hard shelter in place, meaning everything is closed. In other states, things were managed differently. In Israel, everybody went into shelter in place. You could not walk more than 100 meters from your house or your apartment. So that's a big change in comparison to what's happening here. And exactly 1 month after, we started lifting the restrictions. Now, in the next slide, I'm going to give you a taste of what's happening now. But throughout this entire conversation and also with the consulate team, this is an ongoing changing situation. So gatherings of weddings are permitted in Israel for between 50 and 100 people. If we see the situation change, the Ministry of Health might also change its directive. So while we are one of the first countries that got ahead of the curve and managed to flatten it, we are still making sure and following what's happening in Israel day by day because we don't want to go back. Also, we've been getting a lot of questions. I've been getting a lot of questions, and I'm sure Anat and Alex have been getting a lot of questions about the date. When is Israel going to open? And as much as we would love to open tomorrow, we'd rather wait a bit longer than make a rash decision because we're already in a challenging economic situation similar to the US and other countries, and opening a few days sooner, we just don't want to go back. That's why we're following and making sure. So companies can have up to 10 employees or 30% of employees return to the office. Stores are open. Public transportation is permitted at a max of 75 capacity. I've been getting a lot of questions about tour buses. There is nothing formal. The discussion amongst me and my other directors in charge of the Northeast, Midwest, and West USA for the Ministry of Tourism is that it will be similar for the travel industry. However, we still don't know. Outdoor events and gatherings are permitted. Like I said, beaches are open. As you can see in the picture, Israel is an all-year travel destination. The beaches was one of the things Israelis missed the most, so they're now open. But although I gave a taste of 5 things that have been lifted, a 14-day quarantine is still in place. And non-citizens are still not permitted. So non-citizens are not permitted to go to Israel, and if you are Israeli, an Israel citizen, and you want to go, no matter where from, you are still obligated to go into a 14-day quarantine. So the future of travel in Israel, I want to talk about 3 main topics. The first one, I call it the traffic light. It's not, it's a non-brainer. There are now discussions about dividing all the countries in the world to a red, yellow, and green countries. The US is still in red. The yellow are countries that are being discussed and checked, and the green countries, what the Ministry of Health, together with the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, have compiled a list of around 20 countries, including Greece and Cyprus, that will be permitted to go to Israel in a kind of travel exchange. So this has been one of the hottest discussions. Greece and Cyprus, at the beginning they were talking about June 1st. That's obviously not going to happen. They're talking about July as a starting point, but there are still a lot of questions raised because Cyprus and Greece rely heavily on the summer as their tourism season. So they want to open their borders to everyone. And if they open their borders to everyone, how can we know that they're both green countries? So I'm raising questions that we're still internally dealing with, but that's the short, medium, and long term. We still don't have a formal date either to green or red, but regarding North America, we're looking at around September. So anything before that is probably a no. And then from September moving forward, we're positive about that. So except in addition to red, yellow, and green countries, we started opening for domestic travel, and I'll talk about it quickly in a sec, and implemented a new purple standard. So purple standard is a standard that the Ministry of Health has implemented with other government ministries, including the Ministry of Economy and also the Ministry of the Ministry of Tourism. Our purple standard is the purple standard for national parks, hotels, different kind of accommodations. So that's what we're focusing on. So I'll now I'll discuss flights, hotels, and parks. So renewing flights to Israel, super happy to announce, still carrying only Israelis, but Delta renewed its JFK TLV route last week. United has never stopped flying from DC to Tel Aviv, which is just shows her strong relation to Israel, and is expecting to renew its San Francisco Tel Aviv flight on July 10. Lufthansa, which was one of the first countries that stopped flying even before we announced non-citizens will not be permitted. So it was one of the first aviation carriers that stopped flying, is also one of the first that renewed its flight from Munich and Frankfurt to Tel Aviv. And beginning of next week, Jan, the Greek carrier, announced it will start flying to Israel. There's an expected visit of the Greek Prime Minister in order to discuss that kind of tourism exchange I was talking about. So it's a good future. Again, some people are going to ask, what about the quarantine? There's still quarantine. These carriers are only flying Israeli citizens. National parks and forests have reopened. The National Parks Authority started with pilot of opening 20 national parks, and also launched a designated service to rebook and repay for your visit. So I hope it will force us Israelis to be more accurate and more organized, because with everything happening, we just don't have other choices. So you go online, the website is currently in Hebrew, Arabic, and Russian, and I think they already translated it to English, but it's a good sign. They also did it right before Shavuot, the Jewish Pentecost, because similar to Memorial Day weekend, people wanted to travel, and we are very fortunate to have many open spaces. And I talk about it a lot in designated travel webinars, because if it's faith-based, LGBTQ, the Jewish audience, Israel has been blessed to have a lot of open space attractions, and especially now, it's super important because people are they're not sure if they should go and if they'll contract the virus. So all of these parks also have a cap on the number of people they're permitting to enter and travel throughout, and they also extended the hours. Similar to national parks, hotels, and I just got off a webinar. Last week we had a webinar with the Dan hotels. Today we had a webinar with Islatel. They are all accepting the purple standard as a part of everyday life. Obviously, we're not gonna get the Israeli buffet in the near future, unfortunately, and people are asked to call the restaurant, whether it's for breakfast or dinner, to make sure they have a time for them, because families differ. So you have a family of 4 people, family of 10 people, they need to call the restaurant. Of course, all the tables have been spaced out. We are keeping 6 feet or 2 meters. They also started using new materials for cleaning the room. So everyone is trying to practice health restrictions. The hotels understand that these are challenging times, but they still want to operate. And with that, they understand that they have to operate in a new reality. And that's, fighting the Israeli mentality of of eating together, being close. I mean, it's very hard for us, the Israelis, Anat and Alex as well, to imagine it since we've been on this side of the pond for the last 3 months. But you know, the Israeli culture is all about the warmth and the hugs and eating together and breaking bread. So we understand that in order to keep that for the future, we have to try and act differently now. But I spoke about the Dan hotels in East Hotel, and I've been checking. I love graphic design, so I've been following their new protocols, and I absolutely love the design. They took it to the next level. The Dan hotels, when you check into the hotel, you get a brand new kit. It's branded. It's super cool. All the staff has been wearing it and practicing, so that's another side. And of course, super, super important, holy sites. I cannot, well, maybe before my time, but I don't remember a time when the Holy Sepulchre, the Garden Tomb, the Western Wall, the Sexum visitor centers have been closed, and they were closed for a few months, but now they're open. They're all practicing social distance and having a cap, especially in the closed places. The Garden Tomb, except for the tomb itself, is an open space. But the Holy Sepulchre, I'm sure that they're making sure that there's a cap. And also, like we said, there are still no tourists. So it's only for the local community. If you're in Israel and you can go visit, and you've never been to the Holy Sepulchre, now is the time to go. It's one of my absolute most favorite places. I know I'm Jewish, but it's a melting pot of history itself. So take a small recommendation from me. And again, looking at these pictures, it's really surreal to see, you know, the Western Wall having so little visitors, but that's our reality, and we're getting adjusted. And just to leave you with our activity, travel in the entire world has come to a stop, and we are trying to stay top of mind. So we've been working on our databases and websites, but we're also going back to people who visited Israel and ask them to reshare their memories, to stay inspired by Israel. That's the new activity. And we're also very active. We're having Instagram lives and Facebook live with chefs that have been in Israel. So I encourage you guys to follow us on our Instagram and also Facebook, and hashtag inspired by Israel if you upload any pictures of you in Israel. And that's it. I hope it was a short just run through with what's happening. And now if you want me to dig deeper or talk about other things that I didn't touch, is the time.
Yes, I think it's my cue. We've been getting several questions from the participants. My name is Alex. I'm the Deputy Consul General for the Israeli Consulate in Atlanta. And let me ask you this question. Well, first of all, we have Leah Chase saying that she's an old friend of Ronnie Parat. I'm not sure if that rings a bell. But in any case, we have a question from Pastor Jeff Smith. He has been asking about new kinds of ways to be tested. He has a tour proposed to October, and he's asking whether he will be able to come, will be able to be tested on the way or there.
Right. So the plan is to test travelers before they board the plane. That's the goal. However, it's still being checked, so there's nothing has been confirmed till now. So
okay, so not to plan yet for October 2020. Cindy is asking about the financial status of El Al. We've been hearing about that recently, and government bailout, no government bailout banks. Do you have any news?
So I don't have any news. The Ministry of Finance has proposed a plan to the management of El Al, and it's now up to them to accept it or to not accept it.
Okay. So here's a question that I think is more to my capacity. I'm also the consulate, the Israeli consulate in Atlanta. David is asking whether non-citizens who are immediate family to Israeli citizens are approved to enter Israel with a 14-day quarantine. So this subject has been discussed for the past several weeks in Israel, as Israel is still holding its quarantine plan. Non-citizens who are immediate family to Israeli citizens are allowed to come to Israel if their center of life is in Israel. If their center of life is in Israel or their spouse's center of life is in Israel, then it might be considered as if the center of life of the family is not in Israel. There's a difference between the Israeli citizen and its and children of that Israeli citizen and the partner who is not an Israeli citizen, and in some cases has not even been registered in Israel as the spouse. So if that answers the question. For now, and please keep following because this changes on a daily basis and we get new instructions from Israel. Keep following instructions both on our website, on the website of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Population and Immigration in Israel. So Yael, another question to you. What's your recommendation in terms of planning for 2021 American delegation? This is from Mayrav.
Yeah, one of the questions that composed the $1 million questions. I don't think anyone knows what 2021 will bring, so we'll just have to follow reality as it goes. As I said, is my voice better now?
Just a bit. I think if you spoke in a bit, not as loud.
Okay.
Then yes.
Is it better now?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So things change every day, and while we're still trying to figure out when to open Israel for travelers, even for Greece and Cyprus, we still don't have a date for that as well. So I know it's hard. There are many questions and still we don't have answers, but we're gonna have to wait and see 2020 through. I also, I've been following a lot of other destinations. New Zealand just announced that it, got rid of COVID-19 altogether, and both New Zealand and Australia, I think I saw they both declared they're not going to open their gates for non-citizens all the way, through 2020. And I understand that decision because both the US and Israel are in a challenging economic situation, and probably, and everyone knows that it brought a lot of difficulties, and especially for distant destinations that are also islands. And Israel, in that sense, is kind of an island, and that's why we closed the borders so quickly. So again, those decisions are understandable, and the cases started in Israel from people who travel. Now, it's not blaming anyone, but because the world was traveling so much in the beginning of 2020, travel has been growing over the past decade. The financial situation in the world was really good and people were traveling, and it only makes sense that it came to Israel from the outside, and that's also why we're waiting with opening the borders. So to answer your question, I still don't have an answer.
Okay, great. I see Eitan here from Dan Hotels also came to listen to us, and he's offering to show pictures and policies of how Dan Hotels are doing it during this time of COVID. So Kenny is asking, how is the government handling hotel occupancy? Is there a limit percentage for occupants, I guess, in different hotels? I don't know, 2 rooms per floor or 1 room in between 2 rooms that will not be occupied? Is there
Right.
any?
So maybe Ethan could also chip in here, but I don't know of any government regulation regarding a hotel not being able to host its, go on to its full capacity.
Eitan is also asking, do we know of if criteria is being formed about when to open?
Who is asking?
Eitan, not the same Eitan from Don, but a different Eitan. Eitan Sasson is asking about the criteria. Is there a criteria formulated in the ministry and the government? I know there's a new minister in the ministry. There's a new government in Israel. Are there any news?
First of all, Mazel Tov to us all. We have a new government, and it's very positive because in times like this, we need stability. So now that we have it, I can say from our point that our minister hit the ground running and is now handling domestic travel. So he is traveling and meeting people as permitted. He was in Tiberias. It was either yesterday or the day before, talking to the hotels and understanding what's needed to bring domestic travel back to track. And I know he's super excited. His previous position was in the Tel Aviv municipality, so he knows a lot about tourism in Tel Aviv. There are other parts of Israel that are very different than what he knows, mainly talking about the holy sites and other segments that Israel is working with. So that's something he will have to learn, and he might know it. Until now, I still haven't, he hasn't called. But we do know that he's working and currently wants to push the local tourism boards. Also, after a long time, our ministry together with the Minal Mekarkei Israel,
the Land Authority of Israel.
Yeah, just approved building of another 1,500 hotel rooms in Eilat, and that's something that the city was in dire need for. So that's another positive thing. And unrelated, somebody corrected me, and they're right. United never stopped flying from Newark and not from DC, which was in my presentation. So I apologize for that mistake.
Okay, great. So several questions are repeating. Everything is related to opening up, of course, and I think this is also the theme of this talk. And Philip here is also asking about his grandson, and I know a lot of people, a lot of Jewish people are waiting to do their celebrations in Israel. And Philip is asking about his grandson who is being bar mitzvahed on December 19th. Congratulations. So he would like to have the bar mitzvah at the Western Wall. Do you know if he will be able to do that? December 19th. It's another question about whether it's going to be early or not. Is it going to open by then?
We still don't know. It might, Anat and I had a short conversation about an hour ago and talking about how things are fragile. We might decide to open and then close again. I hope we don't come to that. But, with domestic affairs like restaurants and bars and national parks, this is not the pilot. So only after we, we let the pilot run its course, we're going to be able to know if we can open for international. And then I really hope you can have your bar mitzvah at the Western Wall, December 2020.
Leah is asking about tour buses and private cars with a guide. How are they being handled in this time of COVID?
So there are currently no tourists in Israel. So the amount of people, like I said, going to the Western Wall, they're still keeping distant, and also the Holy Sepulchre. But I was in Israel November 2019, and I've never seen such a line to enter the Holy Sepulchre. It was really unbelievable. Never seen something like that. So the numbers are, even for now, are much smaller. And if tours are taking place, they're taking place in private cars. I don't think that there are currently Israelis traveling in buses, but I could be wrong, and I can check that. But the most important question that is being raised is, how is it going to happen in the future? But we still have time for that, because once we decide on a date for opening the borders, then we'll have to deal with everything else in a very short time. And we are thinking about it. The public transport, so the train hasn't started operating yet, but the buses are, and the cap is 75%. And that's what we're assuming for tour buses. But again, nothing formal, unfortunately.
Thank you. See your question. So some of it is consular affairs, I see. Whoever wants to ask a consular affairs question is very much welcome to contact the consulate. It's all on our website. This is more about tourism and less about specific consular questions. I'll be very happy to answer your questions, me or my team, if you contact us via mail or phone. We also have a WhatsApp that is operating. Please look at our website and you can see everything there. I think our next question. Okay. Kari is ready to go to Israel. Robert is asking, tourism from the US is expected to return September 1st. Do you expect the 14th-day quarantine to be lifted after that?
So in order for tourism, international tourism, to be back, it will surely happen after lifting the 14 days quarantine. So it won't really make sense to open the borders and also demand people to go into quarantine. Most people, although I would love them to go to Israel for 3 weeks, a month, most people travel to Israel between 7 and 14 days, and that's the time that is currently being asked to self-quarantine or quarantine. So the phases will be lifting of the quarantine and then opening for international travel. If I'll go to Israel now, I will still have to go to a quarantine. So it's for everyone, Israelis and non-Israelis are not permitted, but also for Israelis.
Okay, a lot of consular questions apparently.
Yeah, I see a question about health insurance.
Yeah, I see that one, yeah.
Okay, so that's one of the big questions in the travel world as of now. This is, everybody, all the tourism board have been talking about it, and as government agencies that don't control the insurance market, there is, different countries are structured differently, but there is nothing we can do as of now for health insurance, and it's definitely something that is going to go up because a lot of insurance companies had to deal with problems they never dealt before. And also something super interesting that we found out is that currently a lot of insurance companies are asking for people not to purchase their insurance if they think they will be canceling their trips due to COVID-19, or if they have COVID-19, anything related to COVID-19, their insurance companies, for the first time in history, are saying, don't buy our insurance because we won't cover it. So we don't want to, buy and pay a product and not get your money's worth. It's also a new thing we've been experiencing. It's very interesting, and I'm sure that the insurance companies will raise their prices. It's inevitable. It's probably going to spike up at the beginning and then, settle down. Again, these are time of uncertainties, and their insurance companies are acting or trying to figure it out, similar to many other industries out there.
Mirav is asking, is there a way you are encouraging pre-bookings and zero cancellations? And
again,
if you are encouraging pre-bookings and zero cancellations?
So most of the so when COVID hit, the first month was even more uncertain than now, and we were watching and watching bookings and also being in contact with our operators, and we saw that many groups have been postponing. A few weeks after COVID hit, so mid-April, the entire tourism industry launched a united, not intentionally, a united social media campaign that carried the message of postpone, don't cancel, because if people would have canceled no matter where their bookings, then the entire industry would have collapsed. And by postponing, you're keeping, it could even be the deposit you paid with the company, making sure they're still alive. Most companies that we've been in touch with have been postponing. Many groups, they want to go. So unlike a lot of challenges Israel has experienced in the past, COVID-19 is a worldwide phenomena. And it doesn't take from the fact that people still want to go to Israel. Some people travel to Israel from all kinds of reasons, but some of them have been planning to go in 2020 for the first time ever, and it's been the dream of their life. So not going in 2020 doesn't mean they cannot go in 2021. And also psychologically, once you cancel the trip, you're probably going to use the money for something else, especially now. So by securing the deposit, securing the payment, you are promising yourselves the trip you've been planning for the next year. However, there are occasions like a bar mitzvah, the celebration is now, your grandchild is never going to be 13 again, that are time specific. But again, these are crazy times, and maybe you will be able to celebrate a bat or bar mitzvah next year. I mean, nothing is normal, so what the heck?
Right. So we've got a bunch of questions regarding this August. People were planning to go this August, and groups that are coming this August. People are asking, should I cancel my group if it's happening this August?
If a group is planning to go in August, I would suggest to propose it to postpone it to 2021.
Okay. Thank you. I think that was for Nadia and Kari. People are asking about travel documents. Will a passport suffice to come to Israel, or should you need an additional ID or document?
Are people asking about future documents that will be needed?
Have you heard anything about that?
Again, it's been in discussions, but nothing is confirmed. Especially, I haven't heard the conversation focusing on Israel. So, I mean, I understand the questions. A lot of destinations have been deliberating if to start a health passport, or people will have to come with proof that they've been tested no longer than 72 hours before the flight. Again, there's nothing confirmed, and we're looking into checking people before they board the plane. So that's the direction.
People are asking, will masks be required when they visit different sites?
So masks are currently required by the airlines, not just going to Israel, also traveling domestically in the US. But there is no federal or state obligation to wear a mask in Israel. It might change, like we said many times throughout this webinar, but there's currently no obligation to wear a mask. So I don't see it being different for Israelis and tourists. It's either you have to wear a mask in certain places, maybe they'll change it once we open the skies for closed locations like churches or museums, but for now there's no obligation.
There's a very interesting question here from Nestor. I'm going to read it the way he wrote it without any editing. How will IMOT shift its trade and consumer marketing strategies in response to COVID? Will it be more outdoor experience, rural escapes, etc.?
Yeah, so that's a very good question.
It is a very good question.
If you saw how I spoke about it, I put an emphasis on national parks and JNF forests, because for now, and also when tourists are back, we're definitely going to take advantage of that. So during 2019, well, beginning of 2018 and all throughout 2019, we started putting an emphasis on the Negev, on the different activities you can enjoy in the south of Israel. 60% of Israel is desert. We've done amazing things with it, but you know, the most important thing is that it's an open space. So whether you go up north or down south, you can enjoy Israel in open space. And unlike other destinations in the Mediterranean that rely on the summer heavily, so meaning if July and August aren't filled with tourists, their economy is going to be in more problems. Israel is an all-year destination, all year round. So yes, we have winter in November to from, you know, let's say October till February. But even when it's cold, it's not freezing. Of course, it might rain. It rains wherever you go. But being able to travel the old city in Jerusalem in November is something that you cannot enjoy in other European destinations and even here in North America. So we already started, we're not doing anything active. So there are no running campaigns out of respect for COVID-19, and especially in North America, it's been a challenging couple of weeks. So we just didn't feel that this is the most important thing to market, but we already started and we're working on a different strategy highlighting open space, nature, natural reserves, and parks.
Thank you. So an anonymous attendee is asking, is there a website you recommend to follow the travel restrictions? How will people know? Except this webinar, of course.
Right. So we've been updating our website, Israel.travel. And once you land there, there's a yellow highlight letting you know that if you have any questions about COVID-19, just go to our mini site, and we're trying to update it daily, and if not daily, weekly, about the new restrictions and the purple standard that I just explained about.
Thank you. I'm going to post this on the chat so everyone can see. Israel.travel.
You know what? I'll also, I put it in the chat. Yeah. So you.
So people are asking very specific questions towards their groups and at the times they want to come to Israel. We had questions about August. Now we're getting questions about November. Can you give a definitive answer or focused answer towards when people can start traveling or think of start traveling?
I unfortunately cannot give a definite or a focused answer. As I said, we're looking, it's not going to happen before September. We hope that September will bear a positive change. However, I cannot be liable, either as the government or myself, because we still don't know. We're watching it, and as someone who's traveled to Israel is her entire life, I would love to give you a definite answer, but I still don't have one.
Right. So I think we're going to have one more question. Let's have a last question, and it's about hotels again. Are there specific hotels for quarantine?
So there are no more, Anat or Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're also following this, but I believe that all quarantine hotels have been relieved of their duties, and an Israeli entering Israel has to self-quarantine themselves at this point.
Right. So I will just add that there is no longer such a possibility to quarantine in a hotel, and indeed anyone wanting to arrive in Israel needs to make and prove in advance that they are able to meet the necessary arrangements that they personally have to make, that it cannot rely on a hotel facility.
Absolutely. And just to make this clear, this is about Israeli citizens traveling to Israel, or people who are allowed by the Ministry of Population and Immigration to come to Israel at the moment. So at the moment, people who want to come for tourism to Israel and isolate or quarantine themselves in a hotel, that's not possible. People are required to quarantine in their own home or in a different arrangement. Airbnb actually could be a solution for that, but you have to be an Israeli or someone who received a special permission via criteria appointed by the Population and Immigration Authority in Israel. Do you have any closing words, Yael? Would you like to wish people something?
I think we went through, I mean, good questions. There are more questions than answers, so it's hard for me to not be able to help everyone. But like we said at the beginning, the most important thing for us is the safety of our citizens. And we took the decision to apply a shelter in place for all Israelis for a long time, and it definitely entered Israel into a challenging, especially economical cycle. So we want to make sure that we're taking the right decisions and not going back. And if we, reverse to mid-March when we made that decision, there was a lot of criticism. I remember being on the phone with partners, travel advisors, operators, airlines all the time, because not everyone understood the decision. And I know it's affecting people, I mean, the companies and livelihood and, just people, tour guides in Israel that couldn't work. I understand that, but we already made the decision. So taking any fast steps now will be irresponsible, mainly for the citizens of Israel. So we're waiting and we're checking, and I really hope I'll have good news soon.
Okay, Yael, Anat, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Yael. Thank you, Alex. I think we've had a lot of questions here, and we all remain with the biggest question, which is not if Israeli tourism will get back on track, but when. So hopefully, for all of us. It goes hand in hand with effectively addressing COVID-19. We hope for everyone that will be soon. Thank you so much, Yael, and to everyone, thank you for joining us. Please feel free to reach out with any further questions you may have, or any questions that have remained unanswered. You're welcome to reach out, and we have shared here in the webinar the links to our website, to the website that Yael was referring to, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, Alex and Yael. Thank you so much.
Thank you.